Hey guys, my name is Aldas, and in today's video I'm going to be doing part 3 of my Rise of Red Bull series. Now this has been a little bit overdue as I haven't uploaded in the past week and I've basically been in a bit of a hibernation / exam mode period, but I'm back now. I've got so much stuff planned, so much content coming out. My 2019 predictions video coming out in the next couple of days, and it will be me on camera, so something a little bit different, and another very big Rise or Downfall series coming out. But stay tuned till the end of the video to find out a little bit more about that. But anyway, let's jump into part 3 of the Rise of Red Bull. Here we go. Now, when we left off in the last part, we were talking about 2014 and Sebastian Vettel leaving, being beaten by Daniel Ricciardo, and going into 2015 with a brand new driver lineup of Ricciardo and Daniel Kvyat. Now, 2015 was a horrible season. After 2014, which was actually a bad season, considering where they were just the year before in 2013, dominating the World Championship, 2014 was a bit of a disappointment, and 2015 was even worse. The car was absolutely horrible, and it lacked not only speed against the Mercedes-powered cars, and even the Ferrari as well, but also drivability, as Daniel Ricciardo said. Daniel Ricciardo clearly not as comfortable in his second season. He actually lost out to his teammate Daniel Kvyat, but not by much. It was actually very close between those two. And in the end, the Red Bull finished 4th in the Constructors with 187 points, their lowest since 2008. A winless season as well, with only 3 podiums. So it was a absolutely shocking season, and Daniel Kvyat, like I said, beat Ricciardo and finished in 7th, with Daniel Ricciardo in 8th. So what happened to Red Bull in 2015? Why did they have such a poor season? Now, first of all, there was a Ferrari resurgence. Ferrari, after having a horrible start to the hybrid era, had a much better season in 2015. They had, of course, Sebastian Vettel now at the team, partnering the consistent Kimi Räikkönen, and brand new management as well, with Maurizio Arrivabene, making a lot of changes in the team. Now, the 2015 car was far superior to the 2014 car for Ferrari, and they were actually race winners, and obviously had a much better season and just jumped Red Bull completely. As far as Red Bull themselves, there was also quite big changes with Adrian Newey. He actually took a step down from the front line and took charge of something called the Advanced Technology Center, so taking a little bit less responsibility in terms of F1. And yeah, I mean, I think that definitely had a massive effect. There was also contract talks and speculations about his future, even apparently rumours of a handshake deal to go to Ferrari for 2015 with previous Ferrari president Luca de Montezemolo. So, I don't know whether that's true or false. There were reports of that, but, there were contract talks and Adrian Newey stepping down a little bit. I mean, he was still involved in the design of the RB11 from the technical side. But he was also, he also stated that he was more involved in guiding and mentoring the team, and less in the trackside involvement. I think that had a massive impact on the team, and really, I mean, we all know how good Adrian Newey is and how much of an effect he is, and him stepping down for 2015, in my opinion, was a big factor. However, one of the biggest stories concerning Red Bull in 2015 was, of course, their battle with Renault throughout 2015 over engines. Now, the Red Bull Renault package for 2015 being off the pace compared to the front runners and having reliability that was just beyond a joke, a season-long backwards and forwards verbal fight started, and it was crazy. Now, attacks from both sides raged throughout the year, but up until the mid-season, the fight was just Red Bull criticising Renault over the lack of performance in the engine and the ridiculous reliability, and Renault claiming that Red Bull are liars and that Horner and Newey just lacked respect and patience. And it was, it did get a little bit messy, but it was nowhere, it wasn't that, it was just a couple of digs at each other. But post-summer break, the arguments escalated, but of course the results didn't. The car was still poor, and this is where it got a little bit ridiculous. Now, post-Spa, Red Bull had revealed that they wanted to leave Renault. They wanted to get out of their contract early to be powered by either Mercedes or Ferrari. But despite this, in a funny twist, neither Mercedes nor Ferrari wanted to provide engines, most likely over the worries that Red Bull would become more competitive. Red Bull always put out a decent package, and, with Red Bull saying, that's it, we've had enough of Renault, they were expecting a top engine, but none of the teams wanted to provide those engines. It just shows the power that both Mercedes and Ferrari had, and being a manufactured team in the hybrid era. Now, around Monza and Spa, this is where the argument and the fight really reached its climax and got very messy. Now, Helmut Marko and Christian Horner now negotiated a split from Renault for 2016. They had enough and wanted out of the deal, and even threatened to leave F1 at the end of the season if they could not find a suitable option for Red Bull. So, Red Bull have been actually this has been going on for a long time, them threatening to quit F1, saying that they're not happy. So it is not a surprise that we even heard this in 2018. Now, Christian Horner said to Martin Brundle, and I quote, that for 2016, it's Ferrari or nothing. But as said earlier, neither Ferrari or Mercedes wanted to give them engines. So towards the end of the season, after Red Bull basically just burned every single bridge they had with Renault, started saying that in 2016, a deal was back on the table. So I think it's a case of Red Bull thinking that they held all the cards and that they're much bigger than they think they are. But that's just not true. In the hybrid era, it's all about being a manufacturer, and engines is everything. And yeah, I mean, I suppose at the end of 2015, despite them, both Renault and Red Bull sort of calming down a little bit, if we're being honest, the divorce process, if that's what many people called it, had already begun. You can't mend that sort of relationship. I actually forgot, when researching this, I actually forgot how ugly their fight was, and it was pretty bad. I mean, they did resolve it, like I said, for 2016, but it would only be a matter of time before they were locking horns over engines again, and next time it would be permanent. Now, if I'm honest, I think Red Bull made a really big mistake in 2015. You know, if you're unhappy about your engine partner, you do not, like Christian Horner and Helmut Marko did, go into the media and publicly ridicule your engine partner. You sort it out behind closed doors, and you don't make a fool of yourself like they did. I mean, at the end of the day, they thought that they were holding all the cards, but clearly they didn't. I will have to say, of course, that partly, and this is mostly the fault of Renault for not providing a good enough package. And I totally understand wanting to leave Renault or go to another engine partner and asking Mercedes or Ferrari, despite them being turned down by those two manufacturers. But you do not air out your dirty laundry over the media just to be basically a laughingstock. And that's what Red Bull were. They were just a joke. So yeah, but I have to say that the retirements and the reliability was also a joke. So I definitely understand them wanting to leave, but they handled it absolutely shockingly in 2015. Now, into 2016, they wanted to leave the past and all that Renault business as far behind as possible, and I don't blame them. And happily, the car performance was greatly improved, both in the chassis department, but mostly the improved Renault power unit. Now branded the Tag Heuer power unit, so a really good piece of business there by Red Bull. That's a very big company and definitely gave them a lot of money, that's for sure. And a brand new colour scheme as well with the matte look. I really, really like it. I do hope they change it for the future because it's getting a little bit stale now, but back when it came out, I thought it looked absolutely amazing. Now, the season began with Daniel Ricciardo and Daniel Kvyat in the cars, and with much better results than the previous year. Daniel Kvyat even getting the team's first podium in China. He actually was the one that got the team's initial podium at the start of the season in 2016. However, in a famous move, after Kvyat collided with Vettel in both China and crashed him out in Russia, the team decided to swap Kvyat for the rising star of Toro Rosso, who of course is Max Verstappen, for the Spanish Grand Prix. Now, in my opinion, and even at the time, I thought this was very, very harsh to drop Kvyat, considering that he beat Ricciardo in his first full season in Red Bull and had just scored a podium. He just scored the team's first podium. I thought this was so harsh, and I really rated Kvyat. But Max's potential, as we saw in Toro Rosso in the previous year, was undoubtable. And of course, we all know what happened. In his first race out with the team in Spain, he managed to benefit from a Mercedes collision. Of course, we remember that Hamilton and Rosberg collided, sending both of them out of the race. And Red Bull winning a race with Max Verstappen on his debut to become F1's youngest ever winner at 18 years and 228 days old. A achievement that is most likely never going to be beaten for one very good reason, which is they actually changed the system of how young, and of course the driver license points and everything. So Max Verstappen is the youngest ever race winner, and that is probably never going to be beaten in F1 history. Incredible. Now, with the team being much more competitive than they were in the previous year, there was a big moment and a very big sort of controversial moment in Monaco. Now, Daniel Ricciardo qualified on pole for the Monaco Grand Prix and was looking like he was going to take his first Monaco win ever and the team's second win of the year. However, during a changeable race with changeable conditions, Red Bull called Ricciardo in from the lead for slick tyres, and when he came in, they did not have them ready. It was so heartbreaking to watch, and it caused him to lose the lead and handing the race over to Lewis Hamilton on a silver platter. Understandably, Ricciardo, as we know now, was furious. He was absolutely livid, and on team radio saying, "Nothing you can say can make that feel any better." A big ball dropped by the team, and Ricciardo was so disappointed. That could have been his first Monaco Grand Prix win, and it would have been a very, very big win for Red Bull as well in 2016. Now, despite the Monaco incident, on the other side of the garage, Max Verstappen was definitely going out and making a name for himself, mostly with his driving style. Now, he was definitely exciting to watch. There's no doubt about that, and I suppose that's why, it sort of affirms why he should be at Red Bull and why they dropped Daniel Kvyat. Despite me thinking it is harsh, I think, at the end they did do the right thing, and he definitely proved why. I mean, there were a couple of incidents with Kimi Räikkönen in both Hungary and Spa. In my opinion, his driving there was really on the edge, but it was so great to watch. The one in Spa maybe a little bit too much, where he actually moved while Kimi was trying to overtake him, almost making two moves, and it was a very, very late move, and that could have ended very badly, but it was right on the edge, and it's something that we love to see. And then with Vettel as well, where in Mexico, where Vettel had a radio meltdown over Max Verstappen, just getting so angry. And yeah, the young Dutchman, not only was he making a name for himself on track with his great driving, but also a couple of enemies as well, maybe. And introducing a brand new rule as well, the Verstappen rule, of course, that you're not allowed to move over. So there you go. That's definitely an achievement for a young driver, but he was amazing. I mean, it was great to watch him, and such a young guy as well. Just remember, he was only, 18 at the time? So 18, 19, so it was crazy. And Max's season culminated in one of the best wet weather drives we've ever seen in Brazil. After a crazy start to the race with crashes and the race being stopped and then restarted because of the weather, in the last part of the race, Max pitted with 16 laps to go and made up 11 places to finish on the podium in an incredible show of overtaking and wet weather driving ability. It was one of the best races to watch. Lewis Hamilton won it, but the race is remembered for Max Verstappen. Now, Daniel Ricciardo towards the end of the season also managed to grab another win for Red Bull after battling hard with Max for the win in Malaysia. And in the end, 2016 was a huge improvement over 2015, with the car improving and Max Verstappen now in the team to partner the experienced and quick Ricciardo. They really had a great partnership, actually, and it was, good to build for the future and back to winning ways as well at the front of the grid. And definitely a positive going into 2017 with brand new aero changes as well. Now in 2017, despite promising signs with the aero changes set to favour Red Bull actually, because obviously, they always create a great package in terms of aero, and Renault making a few engine upgrades in the season as well. It actually started a little bit poorly in 2017. The RB13, which at launch was dubbed unlucky for some, and wow, it definitely was unlucky for some. The two Red Bull drivers, to name a few. Immediately, it was just not as close to the leaders as Red Bull would have hoped for, and mostly because Merc and Ferrari they both built really competitive packages in 2017. If you remember, Ferrari were winning races, but they really were now up at the front with Mercedes at the start of that 2017 season, and Red Bull just weren't quite there. Now with the Red Bull, it actually lacked in straight line performance, but actually aerodynamically as well. At the start of the season, it was just ridiculous. The gap between the winner of the race and the best placed Red Bull was huge. 28.8 seconds in Australia, 41 seconds in China, almost 40 seconds in Bahrain, 60 seconds in Russia, and 75.8 seconds in Spain. That's almost being lapped. That's almost the leader lapping someone in Spain, and it's about a 1 minute 30 kind of lap time. So it's crazy. The car was clearly not competitive at the start of the season in terms of both the power unit and the aero. But once again, reliability was shocking when you compare that they are a front runner. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, Adrian Newey actually stepped back into the team in 2017 in the bigger role and once again joined the pit wall to increase his influence on the team. And I absolutely think that this had a great impact on them because they had a shocking start to 2017 and just weren't close to the two front runners. Now, whether it was Newey's influence on the team, the fact that he was back at the pit wall, at the tracks every single race weekend, or just the fact that Red Bull do generally develop and upgrade their cars quite well throughout the season, the results did finally start to appear after the upgrades at the Spanish Grand Prix. And by the end of the season, Red Bull did have 3 wins, 1 courtesy of Daniel Ricciardo after a crazy race in Baku, and 2 courtesy of Max Verstappen, with 1 being in Malaysia, where he just simply outraced Hamilton for the lead, and then 1 in Mexico as well, where he just looked untouchable. Towards the end of the season, and also 13 podiums altogether as well, with Ricciardo in the end getting the better of Max Verstappen, and in the end they finished 3rd in the Constructors with 368 points. Now, despite the relationship between Max Verstappen and Ricciardo being quite good for when you consider that they're teammates and very competitive teammates, by the way, there was a little incident in Hungary which saw Verstappen accidentally lock up and take out his teammate on the opening lap. Ricciardo was unhappy, as you can imagine, obviously being taken out by your teammate on the first lap, I should say. And actually branded his teammate a sore loser. But the two in the end, brushed it over because it was a first lap, I suppose, and it was a bit of a first lap incident, as they say. And yeah, it was just a mistake by Max, but happily they managed to get over it. Now, the biggest issue in 2017, and it's something that has been creeping, and you probably have noticed this quite a lot, by the way, and it's something I'll talk about as quite a bit as well in 2018. Is the reliability for Red Bull, and 2017 was once again no different. Verstappen seemed to have the worst of the reliability, with 7 retirements, 4 of them being actual reliability issues. So, as well as other problems as well, like the engine problem in quali in China, which saw him getting knocked out in Q2, and constant problems with Renault as well. And just a ridiculous run, by the way. Verstappen had this run from Bahrain to Austria. In 7 races, he retired 5 times. That is shocking. Daniel Ricciardo, on the other hand, by the way, did not have a smooth time in 2017 in terms of reliability as well. He had a whole load of issues, just like Max Verstappen, and he had 6 retirements, 5 of them being reliability related. So actually, I suppose, despite people considering Max Verstappen to have the worst reliability of 2017, I think it's kind of even when you think about it. Ricciardo had maybe more reliability issues, but Verstappen was involved in some incidents as well, most of them which were not his fault, by the way. And also the fact that, like I said, Max Verstappen's reliability was really concentrated in that mid portion of the season with a horrible run, like I already said, whilst Daniel Ricciardo actually had reliability issues and retirements throughout the season. Literally in the first race and the last race, he had loads of stuff. So I suppose that's why people consider Verstappen to have the worst luck in 2017. But it was once again testing the relationship between both Red Bull and Renault. And either way, the horrible reliability form of both the drivers meant that after things had gone a little bit quieter between Renault and Red Bull after a shocking 2015, if you remember, as I talked about earlier, they started once again having little digs at each other, just complaining and not sorting it out like they should do. And the relationship after this would once again be tested throughout 2018. But also because Red Bull's sister team, Toro Rosso, would now be powered by Honda for 2018, which clearly signaled that Red Bull were observing the Honda power unit and its development and the performance as well, and maybe even eyeing a future partnership to leave Renault. So coming into 2018, there was a lot at stake for Red Bull, and also there was a big piece of business that they did as well towards the end of 2017. Red Bull announced that they had now Aston Martin as a sponsor for 2018, and this new deal plus their sponsorship with Tag Heuer and Mobil added up to $100 million for their budget. So Red Bull, and they've always done this, they've always made great business decisions, they've always managed to get incredible sponsors, and that accounts, by the way, to a third of their budget. In 2018, they had a budget of $310 million, so almost a third, and that just shows how that Red Bull, despite some of the performances, was still on top of their game business-wise for sure. Now, happily, 2018 was a much better start than 2017. No more of that lackluster stuff. 2018 looked very good for them, and Red Bull looked much closer to Mercedes and Ferrari from the beginning. In the first 6 races of the season, despite Red Bull still not quite being able to be on par with the front runners, especially in qualifying, in the races they were right up there with solid performances and great strategical calls as well. In China, they won 2 races from the first 6 with Ricciardo in Monaco and China. But Verstappen, however, had a very poor start to the season with 6 incidents in the first 6 races and seemed to be involved in crashes and making lots of mistakes himself with spins and looking a little bit under pressure. Now, the start of 2018, while it did have mixed fortunes for the drivers, with Daniel Ricciardo winning and Max Verstappen looking to, make a bit of a comeback after his poor start, which we always knew he would, it was a very big point for Red Bull and the relationship between Max Verstappen and Daniel Ricciardo, despite their healthy, what we perceive as a healthy teammate relationship. Considering how fast they both are and how competitive and how hungry they both are to win, things did come to blows in Baku for the first time in their partnership, and we all knew this was going to happen eventually. I mean, let's be honest, when you have 2 alpha dogs like they are, it's always going to, there's always going to be a bit of needle between them, and it definitely did. After a race-long battle and a fantastic scrap with the 2 teammates, Ricciardo crashed into the back of Verstappen in a spectacular incident on the main straight, knocking both of them out. Now, in my opinion, and it has never stayed, it has never changed, this is absolutely a 50-50 incident. Literally, this is a racing incident where both of them made mistakes. Ricciardo obviously outbraking himself and going for a little bit of a late move on Max Verstappen, and Verstappen weaving a little bit and obviously unsettling Ricciardo, which you know, when you're driving that fast, and just remember how quick Baku is, by the way, and by the end of that straight, I mean, they're doing well over 200 miles an hour, so Verstappen's little weave clearly unsettled Ricciardo, and that's why it's absolutely 50-50. It's not one or the other. It's a racing incident, and yeah, absolute racing incident in my opinion. Now, the team boss, Christian Horner, no doubt was absolutely seething, and he went for an interview with Channel 4, and I really actually commend the guy. If how angry he must have been that both his drivers had ruined the weekend for the team. To have to actually be able to do an interview, I could not do it. I'd be crazy mad. And I'll put a picture, by the way, and it's a terrible picture, so I'm sorry, but just the expression on his face as he was talking to Channel 4, oh my god, it was so awkward, but it was so great to watch. And he was absolutely crazy, and he was mad. So, a bad moment for the team there, and they definitely made a mistake. They threw away loads of points. But the thing is, we always knew this was going to happen. Their relationship was always going to be tested, and just because it's, like I said, two alpha drivers, it never works in Formula 1. Now, after the drama of Baku and after the first 6 races, which had mixed fortunes for both drivers, their seasons completely turned in the opposite direction, literally for both the drivers. Whilst the car was once again vastly improved over 2017 and much closer to the top, it was still not good enough to challenge for consistent race wins and not quick enough to challenge for the championship. But for Verstappen, he took his first win in Austria at Red Bull's home race and would completely turn his season around with incredible racecraft and great results as well. Stunning comebacks. If you remember in Russia, that was a great one. And just great drives and generally outperforming Daniel Ricciardo throughout 2018. With a further win in Mexico and a handful of podiums to finish his season in a strong 4th place, by the way. Only a few points behind Kimi Räikkönen in 3rd. So really turning his season around. But for Ricciardo, on the other hand, he would have a crazy 2018 to say the least. Whilst at the start of the season, he did look, to me anyway, and I know this is a very big long shot, and I genuinely did think this at the start of the season, that he might even be an outsider for the title. Maybe if the Red Bull could have developed better, or if they had a more better power unit, he might even be an outsider for the championship if he capitalised on Ferrari and Mercedes' mistakes. But then he had one of the worst reliability runs for a front runner ever. 8 retirements in total, with 6 of them being reliability related, and once again a ridiculous amount of engine penalties and qualifying throughout the season, just ruining any chance of him even scoring a podium or anything. Now, also Verstappen had a much cleaner season compared to Ricciardo in terms of reliability. He also had a few issues, the biggest of all in Hungary, having to retire and making a big outburst in Hungary over team radio about Renault. And this was really, in my opinion, the final straw. This is where it absolutely fell apart for both Red Bull and Renault, and they had lost complete belief in one another at that point. That radio outburst said everything we needed to know. Now, back to Daniel Ricciardo, like I said, his reliability in 2018, it was actually a joke. I mean, there was literally no other way to describe it. He never even got the chance to properly challenge Max Verstappen and even build momentum, because that's something that is really important and was swept aside by the Dutchman throughout 2018. And now Red Bull, again, once again, after seeing these problems that they were having with Renault, that looked like they were never going to go away. I mean, how many times over the rise of Red Bull have I been talking about reliability issues? I feel like I'm a broken clock. They had enough and decided to take on Honda for 2019, and essentially being a manufacturer team, with the Honda engine for 2019 being based solely on the Red Bull team, but still supplying for Toro Rosso as well, still, to test the Honda power unit, and hopefully see more potential and more improvements in the future. So this deal would obviously be a very big step for Red Bull, finally leaving Renault and trying something new with Honda, and it's definitely something that they would need to work for the future. Now, with all this big business in Red Bull going on, Ricciardo actually did not even have a contract for 2019, and it looked like he might try to get into either Mercedes or Ferrari, but after those options sort of closed due to Leclerc and Bottas being re-signed, he then decided to join Renault over the summer in a shock move for 2019. Now, this was obviously very, very shocking. This came out of nowhere, really, and especially considering all the reliability issues that he did have with Renault, it was almost strange to see, but there definitely was reasoning behind it. And the fact is, Renault, as in the team, don't actually have that many reliability issues compared to Red Bull. So that probably did play something. And also, the fact that probably to give himself a new challenge and leave Red Bull for something different is something that is really motivating for drivers, like Lewis Hamilton did with the Mercedes. Leaving as well Max Verstappen, who had become almost the team favourite and the future of Red Bull, and enter a pure manufacture team to build for the future where he can really make the biggest difference. Now, with Ricciardo out, it would be the Frenchman Pierre Gasly, who had impressed in Toro Rosso in 2018, to team up with Max Verstappen for 2019. He had a good start to his career, and it'll be definitely interesting to see how he matches up. And in the end, in the final season with Renault in 2018, Red Bull finished third in the Constructors with 419 points. But there is so many questions for them in 2019. It is a completely brand new and fresh slate with the Honda Power Unit. Like I said, there has been one thing that has been a reoccurring theme in this entire three-part series: reliability. And what some people might have noticed through part one, especially part one, is that doesn't matter what engine manufacturer they had, they've always had reliability issues, and that is going to be one of the biggest worries, in my opinion, of how Red Bull and Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen are going to do in 2019. And reliability is once again going to be tested because Renault, in the actual team, like I said, don't actually have that many problems. They didn't have the best season, but they have nowhere near as many reliability issues with their engine as Red Bull do. Whilst Honda have a proven record of always having terrible reliability. So that is going to be the biggest question, and also the performance as well. I mean, there's so many questions for the future. Will Gasly challenge Max Verstappen? Will Verstappen be a little bit more consistent and perform all season long like he did at the end to fulfill his potential? Because he easily could have been a championship contender if you put him in the Ferrari or Mercedes. Absolutely, no doubt. Might have even won it, but we never know. And will Honda provide a competitive package that will give Red Bull the chance to fight for a championship in 2019? I don't know, guys, and no one knows what it's going to be like for 2019 and Red Bull, but that is it. That has been my rise of Red Bull, all three parts, and really looking back, this team is an incredible team, still actually quite young. I mean, it's only, 15 years old, more than 15? So, to have this sort of success and to be constantly up there is just amazing. This is one of the best teams in Formula 1 history ever. And like I said in part one, a team like never before, with some incredible drivers and an incredible amount of potential in the future with Max Verstappen, the Honda project. We just don't know what's going to happen, and it's so exciting to see. But there you go, guys. That has been the part 3 of my Rise of Red Bull. I hope you have enjoyed it. And like I said at the beginning, there is a very, very special Rise/Downfall video coming out. It is going to be on one of the most famous teams in Formula 1, and it is going to be more than 3 parts. I'm not going to say any more, but I'm pretty sure you guys know exactly who it is, because these guys have been, let's just say, around the block for a very long time in Formula 1. I'm not going to say any more, but it's going to be a very, very big series and might even be the final one for a little bit, but be excited for that. And once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this. And yeah, comment below what you think about Red Bull, what you think their chances are in 2019. And I'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye.